Hi, I'm Tara, and welcome to Let's Do Books. Email me at tara@thelesbianreview.com with any questions or comments, or come join the Facebook group, The Lesbian Review Book Club. I'm super excited because I'm joined today by Carsen Taite, and I've been a huge fan of her books and videolog for years. She has 18 books out with Bold Strokes Books, and the latest is Sidebar, which is out everywhere, and it's awesome. I've read it. You guys should all read it. But Carsen is here today to talk about other people's books, and not just so that I can fangirl at her, although I could do a really good job of it. Authors are readers too, so I'm asking her about what books she loves. So welcome, Carsen. Thank you so much for joining.
I'm very, very excited to be here. Thank you.
So, what's the first book that you want to tell all these awesome listeners about?
I think the first book I want to talk about is Maggie Cummings, Totally Worth It. And it's kind of, that was my way of cheating because it's the first book in a series, and the 3 books in the series are out already, so someone can grab them all up at once. So that's 3 books. Am I done?
No. First, you have to tell people what it's about. Come on, tell them what Totally Worth It is about.
It's a very cool, I'm trying to think of comparisons here. I'm thinking like Friends, kind of Melrose Place.
Mm-hmm.
There's this community, and it's in Staten Island, and it's called the Bay West community. And it's all lesbians all the time. So condos, townhouses, apartments, and it's just like this lesbian mecca. And this young 20-something named Meg leaves her family to go, she's going to find her first place on her own. And her realtor takes her there, and she's like, what is this paradise that I have not been aware of before?
Right.
And she buys her first place there. And so it starts out with Meg. And so this is like the bonus series, because you have Meg and her journey in, just kind of coming into her own, and her romance journey, which arcs over all 3 books. Then you also have a bunch of other characters, Lexi, Jesse, just tons of other characters who also have their love journeys, within the 3 books. Each book can be read alone, but you read all 3, you get special bonus material.
So I actually have read the first book, and I was telling you kind of before when we were chatting that this book is responsible for me joining the Lesbian Review, because I reached out to Sheena one day on Twitter because I knew she was a lesbian reviewer, and I was like, hey, you should review this book. And then she messaged me back, you should do it yourself. And unfortunately, I actually couldn't, because I was a proofreader on the book, but I loved it so much that I felt compelled to reach out to tell her to do it. And I ended up reviewing a different book, and that was sort of how it started. But I have a real fondness for this book because it always makes me think of that moment that, like, we wouldn't have this podcast if it wasn't for this book.
Oh, well, that's like awesome. You should, write Maggie a note of thanks then.
Yeah, I actually probably should. That's a good idea.
So Maggie is pure New York. So the book is very authentic for a New Yorker. And you get a taste of different boroughs, so that's kind of nice too when you go through the series.
Who do you think would especially love this book?
Anyone who likes traditional contemporary romance would like this book. Someone who likes to read a series too. And it's not the kind, it's not the kind of series where there's some plot that arcs over the books. It's just the love story, the main love story. So people who get frustrated with a cliffhanger at the end of book 1 in a series are going to love this book, because each book has its own closure. I think some people who liked Melissa Braden's Soho Loft series would like it, just because of the strong friend aspect and the sense of community. So it's a very, very different sensibility than Melissa's books, but you still get that very strong women coming together, being good friends, socializing, and it's like lesbian friends. There you go.
I think it's always beautiful when you can find those books where not only is it a good love story, but you see that really good friendship and platonic love, because we all need both.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if we don't need romantic love, we need that platonic love. So I love it when it's written as well as it is in this book.
Yeah, and you're going to love the next 2 books, really.
Oh, all right. I'm excited. We'll add it to the list. So we're not going to talk about how long that list is, though.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm looking at my well-known secret with Bold Strokes is we get all the, as authors and associates with Bold Strokes, we get all the books that they produce. And so in addition to my massive reading list outside of Bold Strokes, I also have all those books in my iPad. So it's kind of crazy.
So it's growing by the dozens each month.
Exactly.
So we'll move away from our collective shame about our growing to be read lists. What's the next book you'd like to talk about?
The next book I'd like to talk about is completely different, and it is Spark by Catherine Friend. And I'm a huge fan of Catherine Friend. She's what I consider to be the Indiana Joanna of lesbian fiction.
Okay.
She's just writes these amazing adventure books. This one is a little more history than adventure, but, I hesitate to say that because whenever someone tells me, ooh, look, here's a historical novel, I'm like, my brain kind of shuts down. And that's dumb, really, because I love so many historical novels. I love Justine Saracen, and there's a whole bunch out there that are really good, and I always love them when I read them, but it's not my go-to.
Yeah.
But action adventure definitely is one of my go-tos. And when Catherine does a book, it is meticulously researched. And this book is about, because I know you're about to ask me that, as I babble on about it.
You're good at this.
This book is amazing. So there's this young woman, and she's in England with her partner who's working with some doctor on some studies. And she agrees because, she'll do anything to keep the peace in their house to participate in this study. And what happens is she winds up getting zapped back into the past, 1560 past, actually. So her body's not zapped back, but her mind, consciousness is. So she comes awake from this experiment, and she's in the body of a lady in waiting to Queen Elizabeth the First. And it's pretty fascinating because, the first thing is she's just, mortified that no one takes baths and it smells, and she's like, I want to get back to my sanitary conditions.
Yeah.
But anyway, she winds up zapping back and forth, and I won't, give away too much about that, but the woman, she's trading places with this person. So this person's in her body in the future.
Oh.
And the future person is like, oh, well, this is kind of nice because we get to take baths and we eat good food. I might want to stay here.
Yeah.
So she's kind of struggling between, how do I get back into my body and reclaim it for my own forever?
Yeah.
But there's also, draws to this past life too. So there's a love story, there's adventure, there's science.
Okay.
And it's, like Lesbian Tudors, but there's also a modern day aspect of it too. So it's a bonus there. I'm going to England next spring for the UK, BSB UK Literary Festival. And so I got like a really cool little travel guide in this book too. So excited about that.
Well, I don't typically enjoy time travel books.
I don't either.
I think I was super burned by Jude Deveraux as a teenager. Was that book A Knight in Shining Armor or something? I don't know. Which I swiped off my mom's shelf.
Yeah, we all did that.
This sounds really, really good. Yeah, this sounds really good. And actually, Brooklyn, who's another one of the reviewers at the Lesbian Review, and she typically does action adventure books, she loved it so much that she told me that I had to read it. So it's been on my radar already, but I think you just tipped the scales for me actually reading it.
Brooklyn is right spot on. You have to read this. It's funny and fun and adventuresome and yeah. And I'm not a huge, like I said, I'm not a huge history buff, but there's something about that time period. I watch Game of Thrones and I watch The Tudors and there's something captivating about that time period. I'm not sure I could put my finger on it, but
oh, I totally agree. I had a huge focus on it when I was a lit major in university, and it was a toss-up. I had been planning on doing a PhD, and it was going to be either like that time period or contemporary Canadian, which are exactly the same, right? Like,
right.
That's as you do. So yeah, and I was fascinated by basically everything that was not Shakespeare.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I think that's also why it totally hits my buttons to make me interested. So thank you. I'm going to have to doing this podcast is super dangerous. All of you authors.
You're getting your list is piling up.
It is. And I actually do. Like, I have been reading through books that I don't know if I would have picked them up otherwise. Like, Melissa Braden recommended Letters Never Sent by Sandra Moran.
Do it. Did you read
It
it?
was so good.
Yeah, that book was just... I cry to think that Sandra's not writing for us anymore. But that book was amazing. I'm really pleased I got to read it.
For the record, for people listening, if you have the chance to listen to it in audio, the audiobook is phenomenal.
Good to know.
Yeah. It's it's one of the best audio books that I listened to this year.
That's awesome.
but we're not
I just
actually
added to
talking
my
about-
list.
We're not supposed to be talking about books that I've been reading. What's the last book?
Well, I'm a huge fan of that book, so we can count it on my list.
Well, I mean, is there anything else that you would want to say about it? I mean, if people want to know what it's about, you can go back and check out the episode with Melissa Braden. But I mean, is there anything else you would want to say about your experience reading it?
Yeah, I had not read it. Again, it didn't. I mean, I sound so stuffy, but it didn't appeal to me from the description, just because it was we've got a woman in the present, and then we're talking about the past, and usually those time shifting books, it's not time travel, but time shifts, usually don't appeal to me. But I had read Chris Painter's Survived by Her Longtime Companion, which is another one like that, where people, there's people in the present, people in the past, and there's this interaction. And I really enjoyed that. And then I had the opportunity to meet Sandra, and she was a guest at our local book club.
Oh.
Which we've had a book club here in Dallas for 8 years, and every single month that we meet, we have the author present, which is kind of crazy.
So cool.
So Sandra was here, and I got to meet her, and I read the book, and it was just amazing. It was amazing. And what it taught me was never say, I won't try something because, that's just not my interest. I should give everything a try,
Yeah, absolutely. What a great book to teach that lesson.
Oh, absolutely. And Sandra was just an amazing person. And so, that shines through in the book, I think. It's a great legacy to her.
So, what is the last book that you would like to talk about?
The last book is the beginning of a series. It comes out in October, and it's Melissa Braden, and it's Eyes Like Those. It's the first book in the Seven Shores romance series, and it's set in Venice Beach, California. It starts out with a love story between two characters, but there's also that strong community of friends. So this woman moves from, I want to say it's like New Hampshire or someplace northeast, to LA, and to work in Hollywood as a staff writer for a really successful show. And it is a workplace romance, boss employee, and I love those. And what I especially love about those is when the author can kind of flip the script and the alleged subordinate becomes more powerful.
Why did you tell me all of that? I'm going to have to just skip everything else in my list.
Yeah.
It's like all of my jams in one. Oh, is there an age gap between them?
Yeah, not a huge age gap that I recall, but
Oh my god.
an age gap too. Why did that just check a box?
Oh my god, it is. It's all of my jams in one.
And as an author, I found that these books are really successful on my own, and I know why. I love them. You love them. But I think the key is when the author can kind of, like I said, flip the script and And the person who isn't ostensibly in power really does hold the cards.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the key to making it work. And not everybody can do that. Melissa's a master, and she's really, really good at creating a setting that allows her to, make a little world. And so this woman, Meg, moves into this complex that, in my head, it's Melrose Place. Like, I see her walking in, and there's the whole, patio area with the pool, and I see the apartments up above, and everybody hanging out their balcony, and like, hey, what you doing,
Yeah, I do.
And there's a surfer chick, there's a chick who owns a coffee shop, there's someone who works in fashion, and so there's this whole world being built, and she's got, I believe there are 4 total books in the series that are coming out over the next couple of years, and if they're anything like book 1, she's got another hit on her hands. If we're a fan of the Soho Loft series, you'll love this. It's just the other coast and a little more laid back.
Oh, I find that very exciting. Kiss the Girl is one of my just absolute favorite romances.
Gosh, those books are amazing.
Right?
They're definitely rereads for me.
Mm-hmm. It feels silly saying who would like this book, because
everyone would like this book.
Right?
It's definitely, contemporary. It's definitely romance, but it's also got that thing that I talked about with Maggie's books, that strong female friendships, sense of community, female empowerment. It's, if you liked L Word, if you like, everybody always says, L Word just was so unrealistic. It's like, well,
who cares?
all TV is unrealistic. Do you think on Grey's Anatomy they're all like, don't even get me started. It's like when I read fiction.
The Walking Dead, do we all have zombies?
Exactly.
Or Game of Thrones, yeah, I have dragons around me.
Well, I might have a dragon, but yeah, I don't want realism when I'm reading my fiction.
No.
I want to be taken to another place and kind of escape from the world, and that's...
Well, and I feel like especially lately, like with the world being what it is, and not just in the United States, but also in the United States, where if it's not a natural disaster, it's a political disaster. Like, I think I actually think comfort reads are incredibly empowering, because they can be that thing that picks you up and gives you enough that you can get up the next day and keep going.
Exactly. And, it gives your brain a rest.
Yes. Is there anything else that you want to say just about your journey as a reader?
There's just not enough time in the day. I wish I could find a job where all I did was read and I got paid really well to do that.
I too lament that all the time.
But I read a ton, and I think as a writer, it's a responsible thing to do. I do get paid to read because I think it is part of my job to read books. Not just in my genre, but in all lesfic and romance books in particular, because that's what I'm writing. I think it's important to know. I hear some writers talk about how they don't read in their genre. And I'm like, how can you write a book in a genre that you don't read?
It happens all the time. I'm not going to name names. I've had authors that I've invited to come on this podcast who had to decline because they just don't read lesbian fiction.
I don't know how you can write it and not read it. You need to know the conventions. You need to know what appeals to readers. I guess if you're just writing for yourself, that's one thing. But I'm writing to an audience, and to me, it's important to know what that audience is interested in. It doesn't dictate what I write, but it's part of the whole pie.
Yeah, it helps you stay on top of the trends. You're probably not going to write a coming out story now.
No, I'm not. And I do still... I think those are still important in some ways.
Yeah.
But it's not my... They're different now.
Yeah.
They're different now than they used to be, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. If you don't read, you don't know that. You don't know the difference in how things have grown. I'm very pleased that there's so many books out there to read, and that I don't know that I'll ever get to the bottom of my to-read list. But I'm going to work diligently at it. I have go-to authors that If they have a book out, then I stop what I'm doing and I read their books. I mean, J.M. Redmond, I'm always going to read her books. Melissa Braden, Georgia Beers, Allie Valley, Erin Dutton, Susan Maher. There's certain people that they go to the top of the pile no matter what.
Yes.
But I also really like to read new authors' books, and I try and read a new author book at least once every other month. I want to be able to say I knew them when.
Right? Well, I mean, there's so many great new authors that have just been starting in the last year or two. I mean, Bold Strokes has Fiona Riley and Megan Ulrich and, Maggie, like you were saying.
Yeah, Maggie's part of that same, Maggie, Fiona, Chris Bryant, all those folks started around the same time. There's some great stuff there.
And all the great lesbian companies have amazing new authors that have been out in the last year or two that if people aren't reading, they're just not going to notice.
Absolutely. And I think that's important. I also go to award shortlists just to see, if I'm looking for something new to read, because they're categorized by genre. That's really easy to be able to find stuff. GCLS, Lambda Literary, if people are looking for books to read.
Yeah, that is a great pro tip for people. That's what I did when I started reading in the genre about 6 years ago. And that's how I found Megan O'Brien and yourself and Rebecca Weatherspoon and so many others that have just become like absolute drop everything favorite authors.
Yeah, Megan O'Brien. Ugh.
Right?
I don't know how she does it every single time.
I don't know. And I think that's why she's probably, I do think she's at the very, very top of the list when it comes to erotic romance, but she manages to balance, the two, the erotic and the romance so well. They all have, not that there isn't a place for, erotica without all the feelings and whatever, but it's so nice to have those really deep feelings built into all of her stories.
Yeah, you get story and steamy at the same time.
Yes.
And the steamy's different every time. I mean, that's what kind of amazes me about her. She's a powerhouse.
Well, did you read Camp Rewind?
Oh, yeah.
That one, first of all, that making out on the table scene was unreal. But that she also managed to talk about, really serious issues with those two characters was, it blew me away how we got that, really realistic view into anxiety with the one character, and with the other one just that how people can get attacked by swarms online just for daring to have an opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And even the night, is it the night out, the night
the night off,
the first few chapters are one sex scene.
Yeah.
Not
one incredible sex scene.
Yeah, but then it, the book deals with, the family aspect and how to integrate someone new into your family. And I mean, she just, I don't know, every time she does it, and it's, a lot of people are like, I don't want to read all that sex, or, or I don't want a book that's just full of that. Her books are not. They're complete packages.
I could easily fangirl about Megan O'Brien all day. All day.
Me too.
All right. So, Carsen, where can people find you online if they want to connect with you?
They can find me on the Book of Face, Facebook. It's just Carsen Taite. On Twitter as well. I'm on Instagram. I'm not a huge Twitter person, but I do post my Instagram posts there as well. I have a website. It's Carsen, CarsenTaite.com. And it's being updated now, but it has all my current releases on there. And that's about it. But I'd love to hear from folks. So anybody, I answer all my emails.
That's true. I emailed you about 100 years ago, and you responded right away. It was really nice.
Yes, I'm very old. It was 100 years ago.
Well, I mean, I too.
Yeah.
I've implicated myself in that.
It was time travel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Okay. That's all for this episode. Thank you so much, Carsen, for joining me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for all you do to spread the word about Lesfic.
Thanks. So, I am Tara. You've been listening to Les Do Books. Don't forget to email me at tara@thelesbianreview.com with your questions and comments, or join our Facebook group, The Lesbian Review Book Club, to talk about these books that we've discussed today and anything else you're reading and loving. You can also find me and all the other podcasters on the Lesbian Talk Show channel at our Facebook group, the Lesbian Talk Show chat group. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate this show and subscribe. To find this and many other great shows, all you need to do is search for the Lesbian Talk Show on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher. That's it.
Awesome. That was fun.